Good morning to all the lecturers. I'm Nima. I'd like to introduce you chapter 1, Urban Concept to Rejuvenation of Chinatown. So in this study is try to attempt to preserve and connect with the significant identity of Bataling Street. So what is culture and identity? So identity is a characteristic of these people alone, and also it called the culture with groups of people. So it will be the behavior, the beliefs, values, and symbols and also passed down to the age from generation to generation. And then in the culture, it's a place for faith, and the people live in harmony within it and cannot be separated. So by its language, architecture, food, custom, and daily lives. So next is like I would like to focus on the keywords is the community, identity, rejuvenation, and language. So in Chinatown, it's located at the center of the Kuala Lumpur. It's bringing out the ambience of Chinese culture, and it provides a very iconic identity to represent Chinatown, which is the gateway, and also it attracts a lot of visitors to knowledge about this Chinatown streets. So in this research, as aim of the study is attempt to reconnect the future identity which locate Bataling streets, which experience the chaos of spiritness and also the cultural loss. So in this study, to identify, to reclaim back the community original identity and create an open space for like the street to engage with the surrounding, and if positively way to contribute by adaptive reuse, which can preserve the local heritage building through a revival of Chinatown. So the promise statement is the rapid urbanization, which is a very big project of MRT, the railway, underground railway train station. So which affects a lot of those traditional shop lots that might need to force them to shut down and also demolish it due to this project. So a lot of the land owners and also the people who are still doing the business, they try to force to be shut down, and also it might affect their economics and also the traditional business of it. And then secondly is the suburbanization in Chinatown. So it's about the issue of gentrification, which also affects the urban neighborhood. So a lot of those young entrepreneurs, it's trying to help to ensure the history to keep it alive. So they keep on giving a project which is a new one, like a cafe, to change it into a new generation, which like all the youngsters would be like. So it might affect that the traditional of all the business and also the events and the activities from the past and the present. So the objective is to develop design strategy of cultural hub in urbanization area. Next is to identify the characteristics of adaptive tourist and cultural hub. And lastly is to analyze the surrounding adjacent building with tourism areas. So the question for first one is how can adaptive reuse a well-conserved historical suburbs and creates space with the spirit of place as a concept. Second question is how to maintain a heritage building that benefits the local community and preserve the origin of the local Chinese spirits of Chinatown. And lastly, what will be the benefits of gentrification in Chinatown, Malaysia? So next is the literature review, which is the place, attachment, and identity. So in this literature, it's an article that's based on telling you that it's the function and the emotional of the environment experience that can influence the place and identity. So it's a place to give those elements the relationship that provide a meaning and also a purpose to reflect the sense of belonging and also a rules of attachment develop of itself and community identity. Next is rejuvenating OCD. So in this article, it's about a proposed programs to giving a value to derive or inherited from the next generation and transfer to the future. So in this article about Think City, they're trying to transfer a new road for new culture tradition for new generation for the community. So in this rejuvenation of public space, they might be believed that can help the cities a better welcoming and comfort for all uh, while also claim back the Malaysian abandoned areas. So it's a benefit for bringing back the culture and also give it a lively, sustainable maintenance to ensure to remain well maintained where all packs of visitors visit the area. So lastly is the methodology. So my case study is the Lantau Old Town Preservation and Regeneration Project. So in this project is to promote the regeneration of the city of Lantau Old Town. It's to remember back the interventions of the cultural activities which are already 1,700 centuries ago. So, thank you.
Okay. Hello, my name is Ryan and I'll be talking about Chapter 2, Urban Pathways in Heritage Enclaves of Kuala Lumpur, a study of factors affecting the comfort of walkways. Right. So first things first is the pedestrian pathway. So a pathway are routes which people use to access different points in a particular place. So if you get from A to B, you use a particular route or pathway that is designated for pedestrian use. So good well-designed pathways, they influence movement of people and help guide them to their destinations safely and comfortably. So this comfort of the pedestrians is very important, that it is important that it is maintained, to encourage them to continue using it and to encourage other people to use it also. Anyway, as part of the SDG goals as well, encouraging the use of pedestrian pathways, you can achieve, actually tries to achieve sustainable development goals 3, 10, and 11. 3 being good health and well-being, so it's part of like health since people are walking. 10, reduced inequalities because on the pedestrian pathway, when everybody's walking, everyone's more or less equal. And 11, sustainable cities and communities. So because walking doesn't require virtually no outside or fossil fuel energy is required. Yeah, you just require your own walking, so it is towards sustainable communities. So the other thing is the heritage enclave. So a heritage enclave in Kuala Lumpur, we would define as places that are old, they have meaning, and then they have been around for quite a very long time, basically. And it is centered, the more well-known ones in Kuala Lumpur, especially centered around the confluence area of Klang and Gombak rivers. So with the center being Masjid Jamek at the confluence, and then on the west side of the Klang River, you have buildings like Sultan Abdul Samad Building, Datang Merdeka, National Textile Museum, the Kuala Lumpur City Gallery, Royal Selangor Clubhouse, and Panggung Bandaraya. So these are actually quite important places because they have all these tangible and intangible values of Malaysian history. So these are quite important places in Malaysian's history. So as part of the research, the problems identified is that despite there being designated paths through all these heritage enclaves, a lot of them they seem to remain unutilized, underutilized. Most of them have kind of like within their own subzone, within their own sub-district kind of thing. So each building will kind of have its own standalone pathway, and then crossing it, getting from one pathway to another isn't really convenient, and it's not very clear sometimes. Yeah, so people tend to especially avoid this part of the city, this side of the Klang River, preferring to visit the more busy sides where it's easier to navigate, like Petaling Street and Central Market and Kasturi Walk. So during the day, this site would be left a bit kind of neglected, despite it having all these historical values, cultural values attached to it. So the aim of this research is to establish the factors that define a comfortable pathway for pedestrian use within the heritage enclave, and then proposing design strategies on the existing pathways to encourage public use. So the objectives there are three objectives. The first one is to outline factors that affect the comfort of the pedestrians. The second one is to examine existing pedestrian paths in heritage enclaves to study them, understand what makes them so popular and so well used and well received by the public. And the third objective is to propose design intervention for pathways along Masjid Jamek area, Sultan Abdul Samad building, so that general enclave, that general historical zone. So the questions formulated that act as a framework also to help achieve these objectives would be what are the factors affecting pedestrian comfort levels on pathways and in public spaces? What are examples of well-designed pedestrian paths, and what design interventions can be conceived to encourage pedestrian use? So moving on, literature review, the concept of heritage enclaves. So heritage is what societies, what people have left behind over the years. Generally, heritage they consist of the tangible culture, intangible, and natural heritage. So they're seen as very important parts of can be a town, a city, a place, a district, zone, anything. They're seen heritage is something that is important and is tied to that particular place's history and identity. The other one is an enclave or a district. It's kind of like it's a medium or to a large part of the urban fabric. And so basically an enclave or a district, you walk in, you experience from the inside. So from the outside, you pass by, you may not really know what is going on, but then when you walk in and you start seeing all these kind of particular programs, there's a particular design style, then you would know you're in historical district, let's say, or market district. Let's say you're in Darling Street area or Central Market area. Those would be market districts. You pass through Bukit Bintang, you would know that district or enclave is a business district or finance enclave sort of thing. So moving on also, so factors there, 7 factors actually that it's been boiled down more or less that affect pedestrian comfort. So the first one is accessibility, where the pathway itself is easily accessible at multiple points that you can get on and off the pathway easily without much help from anyone. And one is attractions that all along this pathway, there are multiple attractions throughout, so it doesn't feel too boring and stagnant and monotonous. Safety, both perceived and actual safety. People perceive safety. Is it too close to the road? Is it relatively safe? Is it well lit? Are there other people using it? So safety, especially when you have lots of people using the pathway, is generally relatively people will assume it is safer because more people are using it and people are attracted to people. So that is like a perceived sense of safety. The actual sense of safety would be barriers from the road or from weather kind of thing. So another one is continuity. So along the pathway, there shouldn't have any like all these uh, lit rubbish blocking the paths. You wouldn't have that unwarranted extensions from buildings that kind of like block out your path, block out that uh, side sideline of yours, especially when you're moving. So you can easily navigate and see what is in front of you without having to stop every now and then because there's something in the path or change your direction. So after that is linkages or connectivity. So from this one pathway, you can connect to another pathway, link to another pathway, and you don't have, and it's kind of interconnected. It can this interconnected network, so you can get from point A to point B using probably multiple paths, and this path or that path. Okay, one will take longer, another will take shorter time, but a bit more hazardous, let's say. So you choose the longer one. So it's like multiple choices for you. One was facilities along the way. So facilities, very basic facilities that will encourage people to use pathways is things like shade, protection from say traffic like noise barriers, or greenery, also resting areas, especially are important along these pathways, like simple benches. And one is programs. So programs can be anything, but generally along the pathway they should have like multiple different programs. So there's no point of, I mean, sometimes a very long pathway and then like you want to get from point A to point B, and in between there's kind of nothing, there's absolutely nothing going on. So it can be tedious and boring just to take that path. So you would end up taking motor vehicles just to get from point A to point B. So inserting programs at some distance in between or along the pathway, people are more enticed to see, oh, okay, oh, there's something going on here, so probably linger a bit longer, or probably just sense of difference, a sense of change, so that journey itself wouldn't be so boring. So moving on, there's the methodology part of it. So 3 case studies have been selected. One is Georgetown Penang, Stroget, the Stroget Market Street in Copenhagen, Denmark, and San Marco, Venice, Italy. So all these streets actually all these places, they're actually quite pedestrianized, and they're in heritage enclaves in their own rights. So all these they have histories, very long history stretching back to the early days of when the state or when the country was still young. So a side-by-side analysis using the previously stated the literature review, all these factors will be plugged into uh, each of these case studies, and they will be compared and contrasted. And then from there, a proposed design intervention for Malaysia for the site, especially the Sultan Abdul Samad building area, National Textile Museum, Masjid Jamek. For these, design intervention will be proposed for here based on studies and analysis of the case studies here. That is all for my part. Thank you. Yeah, and
Um, Good morning, Ms. Intan and Mr. Nakula. My name is Chan Jiaxian. Today I will be presenting the Architecture Inquiries Assignment 2, and my topic is Design of Effective Multi-Level Pedestrian Walkway, and is the study of urban design and planning. So the first one will be the introduction. So what is an multi-level walkway? The multi-level multi-level pedestrian walkway is an effective way to enhance pedestrian connectivity to building and urban structure. It can easily connect pedestrian to enclosed building and improve city accessibility. Multi-level pedestrian walkway can bring pedestrian friendly to the city, and as a result, the multi-level walkway was transformed into a design that may improve pedestrian friendly without compromising automobile advantage and creating comfortable public space for social advantage in fast busy city center. So the next one will be the problem statement. So from a problem statement, the multi-level pedestrian walkway are exposed to environmental factors that affect thermal comfort. The problem of needing long ramps and stairs for pedestrian accessibility may increase the cost of the construction, and a large city planning required to connect city not point to every advantageous place. And the aim of the study of this research will be the how human behavior and benefits to pedestrian activity are affected by the design and construction of a multi-level pedestrian walkway. And the second one will be the urban structure, no, urban structure that can decrease the traffic accident happen in the city. Then the next one will be the literature review. So the first subtopic will be the benefit of multi-level pedestrian walkway. So the pedestrian infrastructure is essential for both development and public safety. Elevated walkway can improve the safety and help of pedestrians and other road users. Easy accessible space for inhabitants to exercise and release and admin is provided via suitable and secure walkway. A low cost but very effective method to lower stress, enhance health, and elevate mood is enterprises. Elevator walkway offer both local and visitor a safer environment for movement and also exercise. So the second subtopic will be the form a lively, healthy, and sustainability city. An overdeveloped urban areas, urban design, and city planning have decreased city pedestrian walkability. The city is a concrete jungle of park and moving car, and as a result of municipal development, the city square, which can be utilized as a place for people to run, rest, and relax, is becoming less active. Multi-level pedestrian walkway can be used to connect people to different locations or to separate buildings, as well as to motivate people to exercise outside and leave confined space. So the next topic will be the methodology of site observation. Comprehends the site current condition, including the traffic and safety challenge. Then next will be the understand the landmark and knock point of the site in order to construct a building that will be advantageous and practical for pedestrian. And the last one will be the compound information on pedestrian density to determine where multi-level walkway are needed to improve pedestrian walkability. Then the next will be the case study. So the first case study will be the Highline case study will be the High Line in New York. In New York, the 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 case study is on Manhattan West Side. There's an elevated freight train line that has been converted into a public park called the High Line. To adapt to the changing needs of the urban surrounding, the new spaces will provide greening opportunity, alternative transportation option, and social advantage. Then the second case study will be the Skywalk system. The Skywalk in Hong Kong. The Skywalk system have been effectively deployed in Hong Kong's residential district. Skywalk system have in the case of Hong Kong, reduced the traffic pedestrian friction associated with high density living, while helping to encourage the general public to use public transportation because they are connected into a trunk and feeder transportation network. A seamless interaction with transportation hubs, support for land use intensification, integration into community user lifestyle, and provision of a variety of activity options are just a few of the numerous blending advantage. They offer enhanced connectorless pedestrian convenience and safety, and are well liked by the populace. The fact that purposely planned skywalk system frequently have very unpleasant ground level for pedestrian is an immediate impact. Additionally, even if Hong Kong current skywalk system surrounding don't appear to be suffering. So that's all from me, and thanks for listening and have a nice day. Thank you.
So I'm going to present about the implementation of sustainable mobility. So what is the sustainable mobility? Is to enable to goods and services, and it also allows for the continuation of such access and participation across future generations. The infrastructure used to accommodate the transport. So what's the problem statement that I found out is transportation issue that is being differentiated into two parts of transportation issue, which is the social transportation and also the public transportation. So the social transportation, many do not realize that transportation is a social economic issue just as much as it is about population or traffic congestion. It is a subject that is interconnected with class, race, ability, urban planning, and so much more. As for the public transportation that contribute problem is because of the time management or the bad services that is provided to the user. So the aim of study, I'm aiming to understand the main reason of causing the transportation issue, analyze the proposed transportation improvement, create a development of sustainable transport. So for the literature review, I come up with sustainable transport identification of strategy, which is the low carbon mobility, which is mainly utilize the non-motorized transport and providing a financial incentive for bicycle use to encourage the people to use more on bicycle and increase the bicycle use as the public transportation in the urban city. So for the next one is public transportation. Mainly is to improve the public transportation, the integration of public transportation system, and also focus on the primary user. So for the methodology, the case study I found out is in Chicago, USA. So for the Chicago, USA, they mainly also use of low carbon mobility, which is use the bicycle as the main transportation throughout the city. They have built a robust network of bicycle infrastructure that is safe and comfortable for the user. So for the next case study I found out is the Boston that is located in USA. They generate the hexagonal translation of site equal to 1 mile, which generally the distance and average of person can walk from one node to another one. So the last one will be the Warkworth route in London, which their strategy is to town center, which is densely populated with people, almost all of these within a 10-minute walks of this Warkworth route as it junction to another village center. So for this side observation on how I perform my research and how I perform the analysis of it. So the first one is to indicate type of transportation issue on the site, and then to understand the surroundings of site and utilize type of sustainable transport strategy. And lastly is mainly use of good circulation of bicycle infrastructure, as the bicycle infrastructure can massively decrease the air pollution rate and also solving various type of transportation issue.
So good morning, Miss. My name is Wen Hao, and I'll be covering chapter 5, which is the urban wetlands for flash flooding issue. So what is urban wetland? So urban wetland is a catch-all phrase encompassing water bodies such as lakes, rivers, swamps, marshes, wet grasslands, and peatlands that are continuously or seasonally saturated with water. Over the last century, 2/3 of the world's wetlands have been destroyed due to land use change and urban growth. And wetlands in Europe have dramatically dropped in quantity and quality, with many contaminated at an alarming rate. Meanwhile, flood walls and drainage systems are commonly used to manage flood risk. Researchers believe that adding additional wetlands into urban landscape might be just successful. So yeah, urban wetlands should be designed in such a way that they follow for the possibility that water running into them from the urban surroundings is more polluted than in a natural environment. And then moving on to the problem statement. So flash flooding has been a concern in Malaysia for a long time, and it has now become a critical issue. So although public and political awareness of wetland asset is growing, sectoral structure and responsibilities for wetland managing are still lacking. These are the currently issue that we are facing, and there's no formal guideline for managing wetland in the context of local watershed plans, and local governments typical lack the expertise and instruments needed to properly manage wetlands, particularly those in development areas. Then wetlands should not be maintained independently of other water resources since they are an essential component of water resource management. Then the aim of study is to improve the city livability in a variety of ways and then help to decrease floods, refill drinking water, filter trash, as well as create urban green. And moving on will be the literature review. So the article that I have chosen is Urban Wetlands, a review on ecological and cultural values. So the topic that I have covered is basically divided into three, which is natural and constructed wetlands, urban wetlands, and urban sustainability, as well as urban wetlands and recreational values. So the first one, natural and constructed wetland. Basically, natural wetlands is including rivers, lakes, and their floodplains, swamps, estuaries, peatlands, tidal flats, coral reefs, and mangroves. And then on the other side, constructed wetlands include canals, drains, reservoirs, artificial lake, fish and shrimp farming ponds, rice fields, and stormwater. So urban wetlands not only provide ecological and recreation amenities in cities, but they also enhance water quality through natural water filtration and regulation climate. So one thing that I forgot about to mention is urban wetlands are characterized as either nature or man-made. And then moving on to the second topic will be urban wetlands and urban sustainability. With increased urbanization, efficient nature resource planning and management may help to urban sustainability. Sustainability cities are examples of sustainable development since they contribute to economic growth and prosperity. And furthermore, wetlands help protect human safety in these cities by managing stormwater and providing a suitable living environment by moderating regional climate. And the last one is the urban wetlands and recreation values. So wetlands provide several chances for nature-based enjoyment. The economic benefits of wetland recreational services can be used to justify wetlands conservation. And wetlands also provide several leisure activities such as fishing, swimming, animal viewing, and hiking. People who visit wetlands for recreational purposes appreciate and highly value these natural resources, particularly because other type of recreation cannot simply substitute these activities. So as a result, recreational advantages may provide a larger incentive for individuals to preserve wetlands ecosystem. Yeah. And then moving on is the methodology part. So the methodology part, I have chosen two case study to compare. So the case study that I have chosen is wetland Putrajaya and Paya Indah wetland. So wetland Putrajaya is actually more on a constructed wetland city. On the other side, Paya Indah wetland is more like a nature kind of wetland city. Yeah, but both of the case study have the main intention, which is collects the water around and then filter it to a better quality of water. Yeah, it's just the main difference between wetland Putrajaya and Paya Indah is wetland Putrajaya is more constructed and then Paya Indah is more man-made features. Yeah. I think that's all for me. Thank you. Good morning. My name is Lian Jiale. Good morning to Mr. Nakula and Miss Intan. So, I'm going to introduce my topic, which is Smart City to encounter flash flood issue. So, first of all, we will go through the introduction first. So, the flash flood issue in our city, it's caused a lot of losses in our community. The flash floods can lead into disaster, then cause $1 billion of losses. According to our Malaysian government, the Masjid Jamek flash flood issue has caused a total loss of 61 billion ringgit. Moreover, flash flood also will cause a horrific amount of casualty and spreading infectious disease. And it also will destroy the economy of a country. So, in short, the flash flood is a very critical issue that must be solved in no time to ensure the human can live safely. So the problem statement is that one, there are two of the major reasons that causing this kind of disaster. One is the poorly designed sewerage and drainage system that causing the flash flood. And the second one is illegal littering that blocking the sewerage system that will also causing the flash flood. So the mainly causing the flash floods are not by the heavy rain itself, but mostly by humans. They are unable to maintain the situation wellly, so that this kind of disaster. So the next will be the aim of study, which is related to my title. So to overcome the situation, I propose a strategy which is called a smart city design concept. The smart city design concept are urbans with abundant nature such as trees, lakes, and parks, or other good design intended to accept rains to prevent flooding. This kind of tactic already wellly proven by China. And the next one is the smart city and sustainable urban plan that also good for our environment. Moving to the forwards, which is the literature review. So the advantages and benefits of the smart city are more clean water for the villages because it replenishes groundwater and thus the greater accessibility to water resources for the city. This is also entail greater water and self-efficiency, which allows city to increase rely on water sources from within their boundaries. Cleaner groundwater due to increased volume of natural filtered stormwater. Reduction flood risk as city offers more permeable spaces to the natural retention and percolation of water. Lower burden on drainage system, water treatment plant, artificial channels, and natural stream. They also provide a greener, healthier, and more enjoyable urban space compared to a concrete forest, which is what we're living right now. A greener urban space also can improve our quality of life drastically compared to what we're facing now and create a more pleasant landscape, aesthetic, and recreation areas that are enjoyable and attract people. They also can enrich biodiversity around green open spaces, wetland, open urban gardens, and green rooftops. So this is one of my case study, which is applied in China, is Shenzhen Smart City. So is firstly the concept was established by the China government. Then the Qing, he are the one of the major architects that participate in this project. So Qing and his student are attempting to get increasingly knowledge on matter of tower unifier units, use plants to grow a medium lightweight and designer soils to capture the rains. When it fall, then gently disperse it upward. A span that multically has several integrated tower blocks at large scale to provide a restoring forest and a natural grounds. Implementers help require water and enlargement to sink in. So by applying this method, the China has been using a very practical and yet a very aesthetic way. It's a win-win solution to solve the flash flood problem. So of smaller scales,
there are also several options. Permanent pavement can be used on roadways, sidewalks, and pathway to include water to inflate the ground, rather than washing off to the local stormwater system. So they are practicing these kind of things are very effective to solving the freshwater problem. Retention pond and synthetic wetlands help reservation and filter water, permitting it slowly over to ground into local water table. So-called rain gardens and prefer a similar function at smaller scale, and it can be incorporated into neighborhood, untreated space, or plain homeless. So moving on to our site coordination facing. The reason of the Masjid Syamil flood mainly because of the city was always developing, causing rapid growth of population, but they didn't have a proper sewerage and drainage system to cope with the current situation. That's why they lead to the flood crisis. And also the drainage and sewerage system is designed, they are unable to handle the volume of garbage that produced by the inhabitants of Kuala Lumpur metropolis. Due to this, the constant overload of drainage during period action will increase the risk of flooding. Illegal, irritating, and poor waste management, which clogged the drainage and sewerage system, are two more unavoidable factors contributing to flash flood. So, in short, to overcome this situation, to avoid it happen again, the smart city are a very practical way, as proven by China, that it can solve the flash flood problem by separating the works or the tasks of the drainage system, not too reliant on it. So to avoid the chances of our city to getting flooded, and also to avoid more losses. Thank you, sir and Mrs. That will be all of my presentation.
Hi, Miss Intan and Professor Nangkula. My name is Vincent, and I will be presenting about my part of this assignment, which is an evacuation part for people during flash floods incidents. Flash floods would be the most frequent and disruptive hydrometeorological phenomenon during cities in Malaysia encounter. Flash floods are mostly caused by seasonal monsoon rain, which causes insufficient drainage systems to channel the water flow properly. The overflow of rivers is also a major cause of flash floods in the city. Looking back at the recent history, it appears that the problem has gotten worse rather than better. The aim and objectives is to develop an evacuation park so that people have a place to go, a safe place to park their cars, and an outdoor park for the people during flash floods incidents. The paper includes a review of the literature as well as discussions about the built environment, flooding, disaster, risk management, and resiliency and sustainability theory. The goal of this paper is to review any relevant works of literature in reducing the impacts of flooding on the built environment in Malaysia, while also describing any potential improvements and current measures to deal with the aftermath of flooding. The paper is important in three ways, which are reduce flood impacts by raising knowledge, providing responsibility measures in flood reduction from various perspectives, and planning ways to mitigate the effects of future flooding threats. As conclusion, the key findings of the paper are that through knowledge application, practice of reducing flooding impacts could be improved. Flooding management should be carried out earlier before flooding attacks, but also later in the event. And disaster management should be carried out later in the event. Management plans must be prepared to deal with any uncertainties that may arise. The first case studies would be the Melbourne Sky Farm. It features a program to provide some demands to the people around the site. The next case studies would be the Tishman Speyers Rooftop Park. It features a dense landscaping throughout, meandering pathways, pavilions, sittings, and some passive recreation areas. The last case study would be the Japan's Namba Park. It features an 8-level rooftop garden and it will act as an evacuation shelter for the people. That's all for my part. Thank you for listening.
Hi, good morning, Miss Intan and Professor Nangkula. My name is Chen Wikin, and today I would like to talk about my chapter, Biophilic Architecture for Urban Heat Island Effect. It's the study of biophilia in urban setting. What is biophilia? Biophilia is actually understood as the love of life by ancient Greek mythology, where it was first introduced by an expertise in social psychology by a psychologist named Eric Hom, where he states the idea of biophilia is understood as love of life from ancient Greek. So the hypothesis suggests that humans possess an innate tendency to seek connection with nature and other forms of life, such as our nature surrounding and environment, where the design actually takes place to attract humans towards the beauty of nature greenery into the part of solution architectural strategy in our everyday life, where it is the belief of creating spaces consisting of natural materials such as plants, stones, and water, which the natural shape of organic formation is also brings psychological comfort and emotional to users as it releases serotonin in human psychological hormones. So the problem statement, it is stated that urban heat effect is the problem stated which is currently facing in Kuala Lumpur, which is our site in Unit C, as urban heat island effect is defined as the temperature of the city is getting higher than usual and also getting higher and higher than the rural regions of the country. These problems are actually caused by pavement structure, building, and elements that absorbs and recollect heat and emits heat radiation, where materials such as concrete, asphalt, and also tar. And urban heat island is a very serious issue where it can cause economic downturn, where it's also effects such as lesser productive of labor workers, an increase of cost in buildings with cooling systems, and worsen air quality and water quality. And it is in the effect of economy, it can bring a risk to the lives of the community and society also. So the aim of this study is to understand the characteristics of biophilia in architectural design. So this is questions as what are the qualities of biophilia can contribute to the urban heat island effect issue. So also to analyze the proposed biophilic design strategies in the relation of urban issue phase, where how do the biophilic design able to mitigate the temperature of urban complex. And lastly, create a development of biophilia strategy to overcome urban heat effect. This question is also, how does biophilic architecture acclimatize in urban setting? So we're moving on to literature review. So literature review I have actually covered two, which is biophilia metric strategy and vertical greenery system. So biophilia metric identification strategy is about a concept based on biophilia architecture, which is developed by McGee and Marshall Baker to be functional on the healthcare situation, where the authors develop a series of perceptive testing on variety on the environment setting, which is with architectural practitioners in order to make the concept valid and reliable, where they also establish this based on Kellett's design and altered based on the environment settings. So this biophilia metrics strategy is compromises of environmental elements based on the natural shapes, forms, patterns, natural lighting, space, plant and human-based associations, where this tool will be actually conducted with photo ethnographic to define the existence of every component available through verbal and physical. and the number of photos were studied for every spaces. So vertical greenery system is actually defined as the greenery incorporated into building facade in the urban development such as wall, roof, and balcony. It's actually to integrate as with buildings to lower the temperature of the exterior surroundings and cools the interior spaces of the building. It has a cooling effect of vertical greenery wall system. It's beneficial in terms of decreasing consumed energy, where vertical greenery wall systems are actually possible to signify ecological engineering technology, which is known as reconciliation energy, where it's stated that low temperature and great humidity attributes were also discovered between the wall structure and green facade, where it means that green facade can actually decrease the mean radiant temperature values by having a 50% green coverage and a shading coefficient of 0.041 to reduce the transfer of thermal heat value of the glass surface of the building. So there are actually also potential advantages of vertical greenery system in tropical climate countries such as in Malaysia, and this can also reduce the consumption of energy in terms of cooling the building. So the case studies that I've recovered are actually two, which is biophilic architecture and vertical greenery system. So for biophilic architecture, the case study I recovered for this study is actually Green Acre Park in New York City and Jewel Changi Airport in Singapore, where these case studies are analyzed based on the study of how biophilia architecture reduces the energy consumption in an urban setting and spaces, and how they are designed based on the intention of use on the natural environment elements, where these are actually selected based on locations of urban settings with experience of urban heat island effect and surrounded with tall buildings and structures. So this also to understand the deeper study of characteristics in biophilic architecture in urban structures. So the next one for vertical greenery system, the selected case studies are One Central Park in Sydney and JW Marriott Jeju Resort and Spa in Korea, where it also based on an analysis on how vertical greenery system can mitigate the surrounding temperature and help with the cooling effect based in the spaces of the building, where they are studied based on the programs, spaces, and assessment of how it mitigates urban heat effect in the urban surroundings. Lastly, of the methodology will be site observation, where the selected site will be actually is based on the Unit C site selection Jalan Tun Perak, in order to understand the process of distinguishing and noting context of the surroundings and relevant information. This site observation helps us to understand the surroundings of the site and create biophilic strategies which can be applicable in this urban setting, like in Kuala Lumpur, where the location of the site is actually based on an urban setting surrounded with tall structures and a busy city lifestyle, where there's a potential of developing a biophilic strategy to mitigate the surrounding temperature. It compromises of circulation of traffic routes and transportation, human culture, landscaping and vegetation, and psychogeography of the site surrounding to study even further for this study. And lastly, the environment of Jalan Tun Perak is observed that it has filled with skyscrapers, tall corporate buildings, as well road surfaces and construction materials which emit heat radiation to the surrounding. Therefore, site observation is actually quite important in order for us to develop a better strategy for this biophilic design. Thank you.
All right. So for chapter 9, I'll start with the title, which is Urban Park to Improve Quality of Life in Malaysia. So it is a study of how an urban settings and considerations would improve one's life in the city. So what exactly is an urban park? An urban park are mostly larger, but it can also have the shape of smaller pocket parks, such as the Lamantun Perak. And urban parks are usually locally defined by authorities as parks. Because cities are huge, especially when they have become the residence for many populations and offer necessities to most world's population for ages. Urban parks have become a wider space that provides much needed open spaces in cities, which offer numerous benefits and opportunities to residents in the city. And in the city where they are full of skyscrapers, offices, a greenery is somewhat a buffer or place where they could temporarily leave the hectic lifestyle. The presence of parks in the urban setting is not only for human well-being, but at the same time is important for cities' well-being as well. However, there's some problem statement that comes up in the urban park settings. So based on different culture and diversity, the design phase of urban park is different. So differences in Malaysian attitudes to park usage could actually affect a park's success and failure. So designers should always do some thorough research based on the context, locations, cultures before designing thoroughly in the urban park. So other than that, there are known problems that are highlighted in some Malaysians urban park, such as seriously damaged interior greening, low quality of service, old and missing public facilities. So these are things that shall be strongly considered because it could strongly affect urban park's success or a failure. So the aim of this study is actually to establish the crucial factors in designing a comfortable yet effective urban park that could improve every quality of life of Malaysians. And also designing an urban park that could lead to the conceptualize of quality of life, QOL, and also a pathway for pedestrian usage within a chosen site to allow and attract users. So into literature review, I have, based on my research, it is quite an interesting concept from M. Powell Lawton that the quality of life should and could be integrated into urban design or urban park. And the four main components of quality of life is behavioral competencies, environmental quality, psychological well-being, and perceived quality of life. So they are all referring to a more specific aspects, but all by these are all psychology thinking that could be integrated into urban park design considerations in order to achieve a better lifestyles for residents and a more successful urban park. And the methodology of it, I chose 2 case study in Malaysia to have a better grasp of the context, the better grasp of the culture. And through that medium, the ways of data collection and research would be the quantitative research method, which is surveys. And the purpose of these surveys is to identify the benefit of participation in the recreational activities in the urban park, making sure that the quality of life through the application of and consideration in it could in fact achieve the objective of improving health status and others. So however, there are limitations through this survey because there would be a need of huge sample size, and due to limitation of time, I could only use the surveys collected by others online. And the case study location would be Taman Tasik Titiwangsa and Taman Lembah Bukit SUK Shah Alam. And the survey coverage would be 4 different parts through the scale of satisfactory 1 to 5, and different parts aim into different questions and response, consisting of respondents' profile, respondents' behavior, psychological well-being, respondents' perception. So the reason behind such data collection method is to determine if diversity and cultural differences actually affect an urban park design. And the accuracy of urban design could affect quality of life. Also, making sure that recreational activity could benefit in improving health status. Other than that, design consideration to improve social interactions in urban design could be validated in order to have a more effective spatial design for residents. Lastly, to make sure that the fact that Malaysians' attitude toward park usage could affect a park. So a thorough study besides just designing is needed to ensure that to fully understand the users, it is best to make a research before designing for the users. These are all from chapter 9. Thank you.